quiet strength over time. The Wealth Forge Audiobook Collection. Original content and copyright note. This audiobook manuscript is an original work created specifically for the Wealth Forge series. The themes explored throughout this book are inspired by timeless principles of emotional discipline, patience, intentional living, financial wisdom, and long-term personal growth. No copyrighted books, speeches, articles, or protected long-form materials have been copied or reproduced. If future editions include direct studies, quotations, or statistics, they should be properly cited and verified before publication. Overview. The pressure to move faster. Modern life constantly pressures people to move faster. Faster success, faster money, faster growth, faster recognition. Everywhere people look, they are surrounded by messages telling them they are behind. Social media celebrates instant success stories. Advertisements promise quick transformation. Influencers present carefully edited versions of perfect lifestyles. Eventually, many people begin living emotionally rushed. They wake up already anxious. They compare constantly. They feel guilty for resting. They feel pressure to achieve more, buy more, and prove more. And over time, this emotional urgency becomes exhausting. Most people are not destroyed by lack of intelligence or lack of potential. They are exhausted by emotional instability. They are emotionally pulled in too many directions: comparison, fear, impatience, pressure, distraction. The modern world rewards intensity, but intensity is difficult to sustain. Many people live in cycles, short bursts of motivation, followed by exhaustion, then discouragement, then another attempt to restart. Eventually, they begin believing something is wrong with them. But often, the real problem is not lack of capability, it is lack of steadiness. Quiet, disciplined living is different. It is slower, more intentional, less emotionally reactive. It values consistency over performance. A calm, disciplined person may not appear impressive immediately, but over time, steady habits create extraordinary stability. This audiobook is not about becoming rich quickly. It is not about pretending life is easy. It is not about performing success publicly. It is about building a life that can endure. A calmer mind, stronger emotional habits, financial steadiness, self-respect, peace. The strongest lives are usually not built loudly. They are built quietly. Small disciplined actions repeated consistently over time create powerful long-term outcomes. This audiobook explores the emotional strength required to stay patient, remain disciplined, avoid comparison, protect peace, trust slow progress. And throughout this audiobook, one central message will continue appearing again and again. Quiet, disciplined living creates lasting strength. If you choose to work through the companion workbook alongside this audiobook, you will also have opportunities to reflect honestly on your own emotional patterns, financial habits, routines, goals, and long-term direction. The workbook was designed to help listeners move beyond inspiration and begin building practical emotional discipline in everyday life. Not perfectly, steadily. Because meaningful growth usually happens slowly, and slow growth is still growth. Chapter 1. The Power of Slow Improvement. One of the most difficult truths for modern people to accept is that meaningful growth usually happens gradually, not dramatically, not instantly, slowly. People often imagine transformation as a giant breakthrough moment, a sudden realization, a perfect opportunity, an overnight success story. But most strong lives are not built through one dramatic moment, they are built through repeated ordinary discipline. A person who saves money consistently becomes financially stronger. A person who exercises regularly becomes healthier. A person who practices emotional control becomes calmer. None of those things look extraordinary daily, but over time, they change everything. The problem is that slow progress often feels emotionally invisible. Human beings naturally want evidence. We want proof that effort matters. We want visible results. When improvement feels delayed, discouragement appears quickly. A person begins budgeting seriously but still feels financial pressure. A business owner works hard for years before momentum appears. A person tries improving emotional habits but still struggles with stress. Because results are gradual, many people quit. Not because improvement is impossible, but because improvement is slow. This is where emotional maturity becomes incredibly important. Mature people learn something powerful. Slow progress is still progress. A tree does not become large overnight. Roots grow first. Most meaningful growth happens beneath the surface before it becomes visible. This is true financially, emotionally, physically, relationally. Think about trust. Trust is not built in one conversation, it is built through repeated reliability. Think about financial stability. Most financially stable people did not become stable instantly. They became stable through years of repeated choices, budgeting, saving, avoiding emotional spending, remaining patient. These actions may feel ordinary individually, but collectively, they alter the direction of life. This is the power of compounding. Most people understand financial compounding. Fewer people understand behavioral compounding. Behavior compounds too. A person who reads regularly develops sharper thinking. A person who practices emotional restraint avoids unnecessary chaos. A person who communicates calmly builds stronger relationships. Repeated behaviors shape identity. That means your future is shaped less by dramatic moments and more by repeated ordinary actions. This should create hope because it means meaningful change is possible through small, consistent improvement. A calmer reaction, a healthier spending habit, a slightly stronger morning routine, small improvements matter. Over time, they become major change. Modern culture often trains people to distrust slow growth. Everything is immediate entertainment, immediate communication, immediate stimulation. Eventually, people become impatient with anything requiring time. But nearly every meaningful part of life requires patience: relationships, trust, health, mastery, financial stability. All of these things are built gradually. Disciplined people eventually stop expecting emotional excitement every day. Instead, they begin respecting consistency. There's something powerful about becoming the kind of person who can continue improving quietly even when nobody notices. That kind of discipline creates resilience, not perfection, resilience. And resilient people build stronger lives. Chapter 2: Why Emotional Stability Creates Wealth. Many people think wealth is only about money, income, investments, assets. Those things matter. But emotional stability matters too, because behavior is emotional. People do not only spend logically, they spend emotionally. Stress spending, comparison spending, impulse spending, and reward spending. Many financial problems are not purely mathematical, they are emotional. A person may understand budgeting intellectually and still sabotage themselves emotionally. This is why emotional regulation matters so much. Calm people usually make clearer decisions, not perfect decisions, steadier decisions. Emotionally reactive people often make impulsive choices during stressful moments. They panic, overspend, chase unrealistic opportunities, abandon long term plans. Emotionally stable people pause. They think, they evaluate, and they respond carefully. That emotional steadiness becomes a major financial advantage. Consider emotional spending. Most impulsive purchases are not truly about necessity. They're about temporary emotional relief, stress, loneliness, insecurity, comparison, boredom. Modern advertising understands this extremely well. Most advertisements do not simply sell products, they sell emotional outcomes, status, confidence, belonging, escape. That is why emotionally overwhelmed people often spend impulsively, even when they know they should not. The purchase temporarily relieves discomfort. But temporary emotional relief often creates long term financial pressure. And financial pressure creates more emotional stress. The cycle repeats. Breaking that cycle requires awareness. You must learn how to pause before acting emotionally, pause before purchasing, pause before reacting, pause before making major decisions while overwhelmed. That pause creates clarity. One reason emotional stability matters so much financially is because life is unpredictable. Unexpected expenses happen, businesses fluctuate, jobs change, economies shift. Emotionally reactive people often collapse under uncertainty. Steady people adapt more effectively. They remain calmer. They think longer term. This emotional steadiness protects them. Another important truth is this: emotional chaos is expensive. Constant anxiety damages focus, constant comparison and damages contentment, and constant stress weakens decision making. People living emotionally overwhelmed often struggle to think strategically. They live in survival mode. Survival mode narrows perspective. Instead of making intentional long term choices, people begin chasing immediate emotional relief. That is understandable, but dangerous if it becomes a lifestyle. Disciplined people reduce unnecessary emotional noise. Not every opinion deserves energy. Not every trend deserves participation. Not every emotional impulse deserves action. The selectiveness creates peace, and peace improves clarity. A calmer mind usually creates a more organized life. Better decisions, healthier finances, more stability. One of the greatest forms of wealth is emotional stability itself. The ability to remain calm during uncertainty, the ability to think clearly under pressure, the ability to avoid turning temporary emotions into permanent consequences. That kind of steadiness is rare and incredibly valuable. Chapter 3: Consistency is more valuable than intensity. Intensity feels exciting, it creates emotional momentum, motivation, energy. Consistency often feels ordinary. That is why many people struggle to maintain meaningful change. They become addicted to motivation instead of committed to disciplined repetition. A person suddenly decides to change their life. They create extreme goals, aggressive schedules, unrealistic expectations. For a few days, motivation feels powerful. Then reality arrives: fatigue, discomfort, slow results, ordinary routines. And because emotional excitement fades, discipline disappears too. This cycle exists everywhere: extreme dieting followed by burnout, aggressive budgeting followed by emotional spending, massive productivity bursts followed by exhaustion. The issue is rarely desire. The issue is sustainability. Sustainable systems matter more than emotional surges. A strong life is built through routines that survive ordinary days. Not perfect days, ordinary days. This is one of the most important lessons disciplined people eventually learn. Anyone can behave wisely temporarily. The challenge is remaining steady consistently, especially during stressful seasons, especially during emotional fatigue, especially when progress feels invisible. Consistency requires maturity because it asks you to continue showing up even when you do not feel emotionally rewarded. That is difficult, but transformative. Small repeated actions create major, long term outcomes. A person who saves consistently builds financial margin. A person who exercises consistently builds resilience. A person who communicates calmly, consistently, builds trust. None of these actions feel dramatic daily, but over years, they completely change quality of life. Many people believe major outcomes require major moments. Sometimes they do. But more often, strong lives are built through ordinary consistency: showing up, following through, recovering quickly after setbacks. That recovery piece matters deeply. Many people fail because they believe inconsistency means failure. They miss one workout, overspend once, lose momentum temporarily, then shame convinces them to quit entirely. Disciplined people think differently. They understand imperfect consistency still creates progress. One setback does not erase growth. Emotionally fragile people collapse after mistakes. Emotionally steady people recover faster. Recovery speed matters more than perfection. There is another important truth here: discipline is not punishment, it is structure. Healthy structure reduces chaos, a routine reduces decision fatigue, a budget creates clarity, boundaries protect emotional energy. Without structure, life becomes reactive, and reactive living becomes exhausting. Many people associate discipline with restriction because they misunderstand its purpose. Mature discipline creates freedom. Financial discipline creates options. Emotional discipline creates stability. Mental discipline creates focus. The person without discipline may feel unrestricted temporarily, but eventually chaos creates consequences: debt, stress, disorganization, emotional exhaustion. Disciplined people are not avoiding enjoyment, they are protecting long term quality of life. That is wisdom. Consistency quietly outperforms emotional intensity every single time. Chapter 4: The Hidden Cost of Constant Comparison. Comparison quietly destroys peace. Many people underestimate how deeply comparison affects emotional health, financial behavior, and self worth. Modern culture creates endless opportunities for comparison. Every scroll reveals someone else's success, someone else's lifestyle, someone else's achievements. Eventually, people begin evaluating their private reality against someone else's public image. That comparison rarely creates peace. It creates pressure to spend, pressure to perform, pressure to appear successful, pressure to move faster than wisdom allows. Many financial problems are fueled by comparison. People buy homes they cannot comfortably afford, cars they do not need, luxury items that create temporary validation but long term stress. Not because those things truly improve life, because comparison creates emotional urgency. Urgency clouds judgment. One of the healthiest realizations a person can have is this: you do not need to match someone else's timeline. Your life is not behind simply because someone else appears ahead. People grow differently, careers develop differently, businesses expand differently. Some people build quickly and collapse later, others build slowly and remain stable. The internet rarely reveals the full picture. It rarely shows debts, burnout, anxiety, relationship problems. It shows moments, not reality. Disciplined people learn how to separate appearance from substance. That skill protects peace. Comparison also shifts focus away from internal growth. Instead of asking, "What kind of person am I becoming?" people begin asking, How do I compare?" That shift changes priorities. When external validation becomes the goal, internal stability often disappears. A person may appear impressive publicly while privately feeling exhausted trying to maintain the image. That is not freedom. There is something emotionally draining about constantly performing success. Eventually, people lose connection with what genuinely matters to them. They begin pursuing goals inherited from culture instead of goals chosen intentionally. More visibility, more status, more proof. But more is not always better. Sometimes more pressure simply creates more instability. Contentment matters. Contentment does not mean lack of ambition. It means pursuing growth without living in constant emotional dissatisfaction. That distinction matters deeply. Disciplined people still pursue improvement, still pursue excellence, still pursue financial success. But they are not emotionally destroyed by someone else's progress. They remain grounded. Grounded people make clearer decisions. One practical way to reduce comparison is reducing unnecessary exposure. Not every platform deserves unlimited access to your attention. Protecting focus is a form of discipline. Eventually, disciplined people stop building identity around comparison. And that freedom changes life profoundly because comparison constantly whispers, "You are behind." Discipline quietly reminds you, stay focused on the life you are building. Chapter 5: Building Confidence Without Attention. Many people confuse confidence with visibility, but attention and confidence are not the same thing. Attention is external, confidence is internal. Attention depends on being noticed, confidence depends on self trust. That distinction matters deeply. A person can receive enormous external praise and still feel insecure internally. A person can live quietly and feel deeply grounded. Modern culture rewards performance. Display success, display productivity, display lifestyle. But appearance is fragile. Real confidence is usually built privately through discipline, competence, integrity, repeated follow through. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, self trust increases. And eventually, self trust becomes confidence. Not loud confidence, steady confidence. The kind of confidence that does not require constant reassurance. Many people feel emotionally unstable because their identity depends heavily on external feedback. Praise controls their mood, criticism controls their confidence. Comparison controls their decisions. And that creates emotional fragility. Disciplined people slowly detach identity from public approval. Not because encouragement no longer matters, human encouragement still matters, but they stop depending on constant validation to feel secure. This shift creates freedom. You stop performing constantly. You stop exhausting yourself trying to appear impressive, and instead, you focus on becoming dependable. Dependable people are powerful, quietly powerful. They follow through. They remain calm. They think long term. They maintain integrity. Over time, those behaviors create self respect. Self respect is far more stable than attention. Attention changes quickly. Public opinion changes quickly. Trends change quickly. Character ages better. Many people spend years trying to look successful instead of becoming stable. Those are very different goals. Appearance creates pressure, stability creates peace. There is relief in becoming honest about what actually matters. Not every achievement needs public display. Not every purchase needs to impress strangers. Not every goal needs external applause. Quiet progress is still progress. Some of the strongest forms of growth happen privately. The disciplined person becomes comfortable building quietly, not secretly, quietly. Because meaningful growth does not always require public performance. Real confidence grows through action. Competence matters too. When you improve practical areas of life consistently, fear decreases. Financial literacy, communication, emotional regulation, leadership. Capability creates steadiness. The more capable you become, the less dependent you become on external reassurance. This does not create arrogance, it creates calmness. And calm confidence is incredibly powerful. Chapter 6. Patience as a financial advantage. Patience is increasingly rare. Modern culture trains people to expect immediacy, immediate entertainment, immediate communication, immediate gratification. Eventually, many people begin expecting life itself to move quickly, but meaningful wealth usually grows slowly. Stable businesses grow slowly. Strong reputations grow slowly. Disciplined identities grow slowly. Compounding requires time. There are no shortcuts around time. Impatient people often sabotage themselves because they cannot tolerate delayed gratification. They chase shortcuts, force outcomes, overspend emotionally, abandon plans too early. Patient people think differently. They understand endurance. They are willing to tolerate slower progress if it creates stronger foundations. That mindset creates enormous long term advantages. Many wise financial decisions feel emotionally unrewarding initially. Saving money rarely creates excitement. Avoiding unnecessary purchases may feel restrictive. Investing consistently can feel slow. But over time, those ordinary decisions create stability, and stability creates options. Options reduce stress. Financial breathing room changes emotional life. Unexpected expenses feel less catastrophic. Difficult seasons become more survivable. Decision making becomes clearer. Many people destroy long term opportunities because they cannot tolerate short term discomfort. Patience allows you to think beyond temporary emotion. That perspective changes behavior. Patient people understand seasons. Some seasons are for growth, some are for learning, some are for rebuilding, some are for endurance. Trying to force every season into immediate visible success creates frustration. Patient people allow time to work in their favor. Patience matters emotionally too. Healing takes time. Trust takes time. Personal growth takes time. People become discouraged because they expect transformation faster than reality allows. But slow growth is still growth. Patience is not passive. Disciplined people still act. They still work. They still improve. But they do not panic when progress feels gradual. They remain steady. That steadiness protects them from emotional decision making. One of the healthiest questions a person can ask is simple: what kind of life will my current habits create 10 years from now? That question shifts attention away from temporary emotion. Long term outcomes are usually shaped by repeated ordinary behavior. Patient, disciplined people understand this. That is why they are willing to sacrifice short term appearance for long term stability. Eventually, those choices compound quietly. And one day, people look at the outcome and assume it happened quickly. They rarely see the years of patience that created it. What could you create in 10 years from now if you just stayed focused? Our Quiet Strength Over Time workbook is linked below to help get you started on your journey. Chapter 7: Protecting Your Peace. Peace is one of the most undervalued forms of wealth. Many people tolerate so much unnecessary chaos that exhaustion begins feeling normal. Constant stress, constant urgency, constant stimulation. Eventually, emotional fatigue becomes a lifestyle. Protecting peace is not weakness, it is wisdom. Peace creates clarity, and clarity improves decision making. This matters financially, emotionally, relationally. A calm mind usually makes better long term decisions than an exhausted mind. That is why discipline matters beyond achievement. Discipline protects stability. Financial peace especially matters. Constant financial stress damages emotional health. It affects sleep, focus, relationships, confidence. This is why budgeting is not merely mathematical, it is emotional. A budget creates visibility. Visibility reduces uncertainty. Reduced uncertainty creates calm. Many people avoid looking honestly at finances because it creates discomfort, but avoidance increases anxiety. Clarity reduces fear. Even difficult numbers become easier to handle when faced honestly. There is strength in calm honesty. One of the most powerful things disciplined people create is margin: financial margin, time margin, emotional margin. Margin changes quality of life. Without margin, every inconvenience feels catastrophic. Every unexpected expense creates panic. Every difficult conversation feels overwhelming. Margin creates resilience, not immunity from hardship, resilience. Protecting peace also requires boundaries: boundaries with spending, boundaries with media, boundaries with relationships, boundaries with unnecessary emotional chaos. Without boundaries, the world constantly consumes attention. A peaceful life is built intentionally. Many people overload themselves trying to maintain image. Too many obligations, too much stimulation, too much performance. Eventually, exhaustion becomes normal. But normal does not always mean healthy. Disciplined people simplify strategically, not because they lack ambition, because they understand sustainability. Burned out people rarely make wise long term decisions. There is also deep peace in no longer feeling obligated to constantly impress strangers. You stop performing success. You stop measuring worth through visibility. Instead, you quietly build stability. A calmer home, healthier routines, better financial habits, more intentional relationships. These things create grounded living, and grounded living creates peace. Chapter 8: Quiet Discipline in a Loud World. Modern life is incredibly noisy, not only physically, but mentally, emotionally, and digitally. Every day, thousands of voices compete for attention: advertisements, opinions, predictions, outrage, entertainment. Most people underestimate how deeply constant stimulation affects thinking. Attention shapes identity. Whatever repeatedly enters the mind eventually influences emotion, priorities, and behavior. This is why disciplined people become selective about what they consume. They understand focus is fragile, and a distracted mind struggles to build a meaningful life. Modern culture rewards immediacy instead of depth. Quick reactions, quick opinions, quick emotional responses. But thoughtful living requires slowness of mind, the ability to pause, reflect, think carefully. That ability is becoming increasingly rare. One reason many people feel emotionally exhausted is because their minds never rest. Constant scrolling, constant stimulation, constant emotional exposure. Eventually, the nervous system becomes overloaded. Quiet discipline requires reclaiming attention intentionally. That may mean reducing unnecessary noise. Less outrage consumption, less comparison, less mindless stimulation. Not isolation, protection. Protecting mental clarity is a form of self respect. Many people unknowingly live reactively because they never create space for reflection. Without reflection, culture quietly shapes priorities. Impulse controls spending, emotion controls behavior, distraction controls focus. Disciplined people interrupt this pattern. They ask important questions. What kind of life am I building? What habits are shaping my future? What actually deserves my attention? These questions create awareness. Awareness changes behavior. One of the strongest forms of discipline is remaining calm while everyone else reacts emotionally. That calmness creates perspective. Reactive environments pressure people into rushed decisions, financially, emotionally, relationally. Quiet, disciplined people slow themselves down enough to think clearly. That pause protects them. Another challenge in modern culture is constant identity performance. People feel pressure to display success publicly, display opinions, display productivity. This performance creates emotional exhaustion. Disciplined people become more comfortable with privacy, not secrecy, privacy. They understand meaningful growth does not require constant announcement. Private discipline often produces stronger long term results because it is not dependent on external validation. There is freedom in becoming less performative. You stop exhausting yourself trying to appear impressive. Instead, you focus on becoming stable. That shift changes quality of life profoundly. Quiet discipline values substance over appearance, consistency over attention, depth over performance. And over time, quiet discipline creates visible strength, not fake strength, real strength, the kind built slowly. Chapter 9. The Strength of Enough. Many people spend their lives chasing more without ever defining enough. More money, more status, more attention, more proof. But endless desire creates emotional instability. Because if satisfaction always depends on the next achievement, peace never arrives. There's nothing wrong with ambition. Growth matters, improvement matters. But ambition without contentment creates exhaustion. A person who cannot appreciate what already exists often remains emotionally restless regardless of success. The disciplined life requires balance. The ability to pursue growth while remaining grounded in gratitude. That balance creates emotional health. One of the most dangerous cultural messages is the belief that worth depends on constant visible expansion, constant upgrading, constant proof, constant performance. This mindset quietly creates pressure because there will always be someone with more. More income, more visibility, more recognition. If comparison defines satisfaction, satisfaction becomes impossible. The strength of enough is not about lowering standards. It is about defining values clearly. What actually matters? Peace, family, health, meaningful work, financial stability. Without intentional priorities, culture will define success for you, and culture often defines success through appearance instead of substance. Many people secretly live under enormous pressure trying to maintain lifestyles that do not meaningfully improve their lives. Debt becomes normal, stress becomes normal, emotional exhaustion becomes normal. But normal does not always mean healthy. Contentment creates freedom. A content person is less vulnerable to manipulation. Advertising loses power. Comparison loses influence. Social pressure loses control. That emotional independence matters deeply because emotionally grounded people make clearer decisions. One of the strongest financial skills is learning how to separate genuine value from emotional consumption. Does this truly improve life, or does it temporarily soothe insecurity? That question creates awareness. Disciplined people learn how to delay emotional spending. Often the urge fades. That pause protects long term stability. There is deep peace in simplifying desire, not needing constant validation, not needing endless upgrades, and not needing public proof of worth. This simplicity creates emotional breathing room. One of the healthiest realizations a person can have is simple. You do not need an extravagant life to build a meaningful life. Meaning often grows quietly. Shared meals, reliable friendships, calm evenings, meaningful work, financial breathing room. These things rarely appear glamorous online, but they create lasting fulfillment. The disciplined person eventually stops building a life designed to impress people. Instead, they begin building a life designed to endure. Closing. building a life that ages well. There is a difference between building a life that looks impressive and building a life that ages well. Many people spend years chasing visibility, fast results, public validation, constant momentum. But appearance is fragile. A disciplined life is different. It is slower, more intentional, more grounded, and often far more sustainable. The strongest lives are rarely built through emotional extremes. They are built through steady decisions repeated consistently over time. Calm thinking, financial restraint, patience, consistency, integrity. These qualities compound quietly. Eventually, they create something deeply valuable: a stable identity, a calmer mind, a trustworthy reputation, a peaceful home. That kind of wealth cannot always be measured publicly, but it changes quality of life profoundly. One of the most important truths in this audiobook is simple: your future is shaped more by repeated, ordinary behavior than dramatic moments. The small decisions matter: how you think, how you spend, how you respond under pressure, how you recover after setbacks. These things quietly shape the direction of life. That realization should create hope, because meaningful change becomes possible through consistent, intentional action. You do not need to transform overnight. You need patience, structure, honesty, discipline, and the willingness to continue improving steadily. There will still be difficult seasons, unexpected setbacks, moments of uncertainty, but disciplined people are more resilient because they build internal stability. They become less reactive, less emotionally fragile, less controlled by comparison. That steadiness becomes strength. Eventually, you may notice something important. You are calmer, more focused, more patient, less impulsive. You no longer feel pressure to constantly perform success. Instead, you quietly build a stronger mind, a healthier emotional life, a steadier financial future, a life rooted in intention instead of chaos. That is real progress. Not flashy, not performative, real. The world will continue becoming louder, faster, more distracted, but quiet, disciplined living will always remain powerful because clarity will always outperform chaos in the long run. And the people who learn how to remain steady while the world becomes unstable often build lives of remarkable strength. So continue slowly. Protect your peace, protect your focus, protect your integrity. Keep improving quietly. Small disciplined decisions repeated long enough can change almost everything. Not instantly, but deeply. And eventually, you may realize the life you were trying to build externally was actually being built internally all along. A calmer mind, a steadier heart, a disciplined life. That is the kind of wealth that lasts. That is the kind of strength that ages well. And that is the kind of life worth building. If you would like to continue applying the lessons from this audiobook more practically, the companion workbook was designed specifically to help listeners reflect honestly on emotional habits, financial behaviors, comparison patterns, patience, peace, and long term growth. Not to create pressure, to create awareness, because awareness creates clarity, and clarity creates change. Quiet, disciplined living creates lasting strength.